Hello everyone, welcome back to the Real People podcast. It's been a few months, been a month, maybe a month and a half, few months. I've moved to a different city, so it's been a bit tougher to get back, but back now. Got a few episodes for you next month and the month after, so please stay tuned. We're here today with Phoebe. Phoebe, if you could just introduce yourself, tell us how old you are, tell us where you're from, what you're doing.
My name's Phoebe Lothian, and I am currently living in Hume. I'm 27 years old. I've just moved back from Crosby. I was living in Hume before, so I've moved back to
again.
the community that I love, and happy to be here.
Okay, what are you from? Manchester, from Hume, or?
No, I'm not. I'm from Herefordshire originally.
Okay.
But I've lived in quite a few different places. I've had a sort of life all over the place when I was a kid.
There and everywhere. Have you got like a place that stands out that's? I know you said Hume.
Well, I'd say Hume. So Hume's the first place that I've lived that I've like properly returned to and felt
home.
Yeah, felt at home.
It's a feeling, not a place. Some people say.
I've moved like 24 times or something like that in my life.
Not to be counting.
I recently did count it up because of the recent move.
Yeah.
And
move number 24.
Yeah, it's like 24 in 27 years. So.
What is it about Hume that kind of stands out to you?
Well, when I moved there, I ended up working at the local bar, which is the only bar in Hume and sort of a community hub. And it's just full of creatives. Hume's got a very rich history of creativity.
Yeah.
Just met lots of amazing people, very talented people, musicians and artists. And I don't feel like I can call myself as much of an artist anymore because I haven't put anything out there for a while since uni. But those are the sort of people that I want to be around and I like having conversations with. So that's where I want to live. And
no, it's I mean, I grew up not far from Hume, and what's funny, I actually went nursery and college in Hume. So it feels like I started my kind of educational journey, and then one of my kind of last educational kind of sections was in Hume as well. What do you do now?
So currently I'm working in a secondary school as a design and technology technician. Okay. It's a role I've done sort of for the last year. Originally I was doing it through an educational agency, and I managed to find a permanent job in October and been working at the school I'm at the moment since December. Yeah. But it's only part-time. It's only 20 hours a week, which is sort of something we're going to discuss a little bit later on, I think, about the lack of funding for a lot of creative jobs. And, so that includes technicians. You can't necessarily find jobs within schools that are creative, but
Well, could you, because when you say to me D&T technician, I kind of know what you mean, but I think for a lot of people, they actually probably wouldn't know what that means. So could you just explain that role in a little detail?
Yeah, so I'm basically I'm like a teaching assistant, but glorified and a more technical teaching assistant. So I'm specialised to the DT department. People have had different DT experiences at school. My school did a lot more woodworking and things like that. And the school I'm at is a bit more metalwork, and then it moves more into like engineering rather than a design and technology GCSE. So that's what the GCSE kids do. So my job is to assist the teacher in lessons, prepare materials for projects, plan projects, ordering materials, just helping out. So sometimes I'll be in the DT workshop, sometimes I'll be in food tech as well, which is quite nice, and
many talents.
Doing a bit of like cooking with some Sen kids and like having fun making bread and things like that.
Yeah, a few of my mates are now teachers or kind of work in schools, and what I kind of speak to them a little bit about is how schools are different now to when we were kids, because I know it wasn't that long ago since we were probably around age, only about maybe like 10, 12 years. But how would you say kind of that school, now you've seen school in a different aspect, in a teaching aspect, would you say school's quite similar to when you were at school, or would you say it's changed much?
It has changed. There is a lot more understanding of special educational needs, and a lot of the kids, the school I currently work at is particularly receives funding for SEN students, and they have actually a building specifically for the children that are SEN, but they're still able to just about be in mainstream education.
Yeah.
So there are some children that spend their whole day in the like SEN building, and they're just there with their small classes there. But then there's some that spend part of their time in there, and then they might be in a couple of like core subjects like maths and English with everyone else, depending on what their kind of needs are.
Yeah, because one thing that I've noticed is because I've got younger siblings is it feels like there's a lot more awareness and kind of knowledge on. Feels like a lot of times that now when I'm speaking to my younger siblings or whoever, they're like, oh, they've got ADHD or they're dyslexic or they're autism. And I was speaking to my mum and I was like, God, it feels like there's a lot more kids with things nowadays. But we were talking about, do you think there's a lot more kids with things now, or do you think there was still the same amount of kids maybe about 10 years ago, but it was less diagnosis, there was less kind of knowledge about it, if that makes sense?
I think it's really difficult to say because, I mean, I suppose there's probably a lack of data on it. If we weren't recognising these things and we were ignoring them for a really long time, that obviously there's going to be an influx of people now applying for diagnosis or going and being on a waiting list. Most people probably have to go through the NHS, which is a very long process. It could be 2 years before you get anywhere near getting like an ADHD diagnosis, or you can pay like over £1,000 and get one probably within a month. So yeah, there's that. I also have an opinion that it's almost like a symptom of our modern technological world, like this short attention span or overstimulation. So the autism and ADHD, how much is it nature and how much is it like nurture and like what you're born with? Are there some people that maybe weren't born with a mind that was neurodivergent that has become what's considered neurodivergent, influenced by the environment that they've grown up in, especially these younger children? I notice a lot more like disruptiveness in like kids and an entitlement as well, because of the acknowledgement that is now happening so often of like ADHD and autism and special educational needs. There's a lot of children who have these diagnoses that think that they are special and they should be prioritised over every other child in that classroom because of their diagnosis. And it actually has become something that I'm not sure is going to be as productive as maybe they thought it would be. It's not actually translating into a productive and supportive learning environment for anyone.
Yeah, I think with, as well, to kind of expand on that, sometimes that is to do, especially now in recent years, kind of like parenting. I think parenting now is more, especially with parent books, is like, you get down on one knee, you put the hand on the shoulder and you like speak to them and kind of get on their level and talk to them, and they're like
soft
parenting. And I don't know if I'm a bit unsure on that kind of parenting skills. I don't know if that's kind of sometimes with kids you've got to be a bit a bit firm and a bit like isn't there, because it feels even with kids that I meet that I really get that entitlement thing you said. Like some kids that I meet like really entitled, and it's really like, no, this is what I want to do, and I'm like, you're 8 years old. Do you know what I mean?
They've always had options. This new style of parent. I'm not a parent yet, but I've got an older sister. She's 12 years older than me. My niece is turning 9 this year, and my nephew is 7, and he's been flagged for ADHD by his school in the last year. And I know my sister's been, I won't talk too much about this. She won't like it. But yeah, I know she's been really struggling with that as a parent, just because, so in her eyes, I think she feels like a failure. For, just, I think initially this ADHD has been flagged because of his disruptive behaviour and like rudeness and things like that. So that's now like hitting her hard. But she's also trying to find a productive way forward. But something I've observed of like the parenting style she has, which isn't a criticism to her because she's just of this slightly older than us generation that have been trying this new parenting style out. And I'm not sure if it has worked, because he doesn't understand about consequences, and he also doesn't have any patience. And I was someone who couldn't really sit still when I was a kid. In fact, I still struggle to. I am right now, really struggling to just sit still.
And get you a fidget toy if you want.
I might have to. But yeah, he just it's all about it's all really child centered, and there's no understanding from the kids' point of view. You know, if you're interrupting a conversation that two adults are trying to have, and things like that. You know, I'd get told. I don't agree with this, but I'd get told children should be seen and not heard when I was a child.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that. And I think that's probably why we've gone this other way. So we just keep going from one extreme to another. And
populism in parenting.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing that my dad said to me about parenting, which really stood out to me, is parents are just people. They're just doing what they think is right. You know, no one, you know, I know there are loads of books on parenting. Doesn't mean that those parenting rights, but it's just what they think is doing his best, I guess. The other thing, I just finally on this, because I didn't want to talk about something else, about more kids with ADHD or kind of whatever. I'm not going to go too much into it because I'm not really like well read into it or not a lot of knowledge into it, but it's to do with processed foods. Apparently there's a lot more kids with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and a lot of that is because of the food we eat. There's this really good book called Super Processed People, I want to say, and on the cover it's just like a loaf of bread. And I read that, and it's one of those books or one of those documentaries that you watch when after like finishing you're like, God, I wish I didn't read that or watch that, because it's like, and
now you can't go to the supermarket.
And now I'm like scared of having a slice of toast or something. But I just wanted to kind of finish on that. One thing I did want to talk to you about was, because now you work at school, is kind of comparing that to your kind of school experience, because I know you mentioned it on briefly, and I know we'll definitely get more into it, is that, you know, you are a creative, you're a creative thinker, you kind of, that's where your expertise are, and that's what you like doing. I want to kind of talk to you about your school experience and how that worked for you being a creative, because I know I've got a lot of friends who are more, you know, who are definitely more creative than academic, and they doesn't really kind of, school isn't really, I'm trying to find the right words, but if that makes sense. And what was school like for you, being a creative thinker?
Well, when I was in primary school, it was the noughties, and actually there was quite a lot of art and creative things that I remember doing, and I feel like it was quite well funded at that point. But I was starting secondary school in 2010, and by then that was when the Conservative government had just got in. So like austerity started. But I did actually... Creative
is the first... Creative things are the first to go.
Yeah, always. I did an 11 plus, and I got into a private school for secondary on a bursary. So that was a really amazing educational opportunity. And the first 2 years I was there, I really enjoyed myself. And got really into sport as well. So basically anything that wasn't sitting down and doing academic stuff. I loved creative writing. And we had a good art department and lovely art teachers as well. So that's where I felt most at home, and I'd always enjoyed creativity. In fact, I'm sure, you know, when I thought in primary school, what will I be when I grow up? My sort of thought always then was, I'd love to be an art teacher. But then it gets to year 9, and you've got to pick your options, and you've got all this.
Don't you think year 9's a mental age to pick your GCSEs? How old are you? Like 13, 14?
Well, and do you know what? One of the schools I was working at last year, they actually pick them at the end of year 8.
I might pick
and
them at the end of year 8. You know?
They start them doing them in year 9 as well. So
I think I picked mine at the end of year 8.
Yeah, it depends what school you're at. So that was crazy. I mean, I was pretty certain what I did want to do, because there was so much I didn't want to do, essentially. So I chose art, PE, and history. And I managed to not have to do Spanish. Except I did a foundation in it, because I did some mocks or something, and I was like, guys, I think I'm dyslexic. I don't know how no one's noticed this. And they were like, no, you just aren't trying hard enough.
I can't read English, let me read Spanish.
You need to do your homework more. And the school I was at, so they had very high expectations because it was a private school. And I was there with a lot of clever people, like super academic, like, you know, economics and things. Like there was a kid in year 7 who could name every like capital city in the world or something like that, and he used to sit in the back of class.
He might have been autistic.
I don't know, maybe, but again, I don't think my school even really recognised those things. And like I said, I started there in 2010. It's not a really long time ago. It's like, it's still recent-ish. And I'm going to lose my thread there. But yeah, so...
You're in a school where there was high expectations academic-wise, and that's just...
I would have liked to have chosen even more creative options if I could have. And I would have maybe chosen design and technology for a GCSE. You know, funnily enough, now I'm working as a DT technician, even though art and design is more my background. But what put me off doing DT was all the maths in it. And then feeling like I wasn't capable of doing any of that because of like being basically like bottom set maths. And then just not doing very well. And in fact, I did end up failing my maths GCSE and had to retake it when I went to sixth form college. Oh, well. So something else that I noticed at this school is when it came to the end of the GCSEs and deciding on then our next options for sixth form is we had a sixth form college up the road, Hereford Sixth Form College, which was all on one big campus with a technical college and an art college. So there was that. But they really wanted us to stay at their school paying the fees and all of that stuff. So they essentially didn't tell us about any other options. We really had to go and like find that out for ourselves. So if you haven't got a parent who is very good,
it's crazy that like thinking God say it, because surely it's just like what is the best for the kids. You know what I mean? Like there was two colleges near me, the two big colleges in Manchester. And it was kind of a split from people from my school, because my school had no sixth form, on where to go. And everyone was like, oh, what's the better college? What's the better college? And I would always say there's no better college. There's just a better college for you. You know, what's going to work better for you. Yeah. So that's mad for me that teachers weren't like...
It felt like if you were
we think this would be a really good option for you.
Yeah. If you were someone who decided... Because they knew if you were leaving at the end of year 11 or staying on for sixth form, probably, I guess, by the beginning of year 11 or halfway through. And if they knew you were leaving, I think they kind of gave up on you at that point. Yeah. And but what I really wish is that they had nurtured us a little bit more in that decision making, because unless you were planning to stay at their sixth form, they just didn't really like give you any advice. And we had an art college up the road, but I ended up going and doing A levels, which I sort of regret, because I could have spent 2 years at art college and stuck more on that creative route. Yeah. And maybe developed my creativity a bit further. But I went and did 3 A levels that I didn't do very well in, because I kept getting told that I needed to keep my options open. Yeah. Like, even like people suggesting that I pick a science subject and things like that. And I'm just like, you just don't know me. You know, you're not really thinking. Science. So yeah, I don't know. It's there's a lot of bad advice out there from a lot of adults who I think are probably obviously basing it off their own experiences or like their experience of what they haven't done and their regrets.
I think a lot of it is maybe just like fear, and especially like our parents' generation, like doing a creative job is just like not really heard of. So like they would never advise for that. Going back to your secondary school, what things do you think, if they had changed, would have made you have a kind of a positive like experience at school?
I think just that pressure that they're putting on you with, well, exams even. We used to have to take summer exams every year from the beginning of year 7. I don't know if you had to do that. No. So it wasn't like end of unit assessments every year. I can't remember if they sat us down in the actual exam halls
during summer.
Yeah.
Like,
so I remember at the end of at May half term year 7, that half term was when they expected us to revise for the whole half term, to come back and sit an exam in like pretty much all of our core subjects, as if we were doing a GCSEs. And the second, like when I went back in the second year, in year 8, I remember letting a friend down who I was supposed to go camping with in Cornwall with her family, and she didn't speak to me for like 6 months because I said, I'm really anxious about doing these exams. I want to make sure I do well, because I didn't do that well last year. And there's a lot of pressure to achieve. Your summer. If you don't get if you don't do well, if you're getting C's, they're not happy with you. Yeah.
C's a pass.
I know, that's what I thought. It's like my A levels. I did photography, English language, and sociology, and I got a B in photography. Yeah. And D's in the other 2.
Yeah. Okay. And then so that so your secondary school, you were at the school that probably wasn't right for you, really. It wasn't the right fit. Obviously, got in some parts, like you said, you got into sport there, which I think is great. And you said it was a bit art, but really, it's probably just like pushing you the wrong way, the wrong things. And especially, you said they didn't identify your dyslexia.
Yeah, so it was me that I took mocks in year 11 just after Christmas, and I failed pretty much everything. Got D's in pretty much everything, and I probably didn't revise. I did barely revise for my GCSEs actually as well, because my attention span and being able to sit down and make myself revise and hold myself accountable for that.
Yeah,
it was like non-existent. But yeah, I did really badly, and I got the same rhetoric that I'd got all the way through school when it came to grades and things like that. And it's like, well, you need to revise more, you need to try harder. You're clearly not putting in any effort. And I was like, I am though. I am in my own way, and I think that I'm being overlooked. So I had a really lovely teacher called Mrs. Boone, she was qualified to do sort of like dyslexia assessments, but not give you an official diagnosis.
Okay.
And she did, and she said, yeah, I think that you've got cognitive slow processing speed, which made a lot of sense to me. So that was basically what I struggled with to pay attention in class, was when the teacher was speaking and writing things on the board. So writing something different to what they were speaking, and you had to copy down and listen to what they
too many
say
things
at the
going
same
on.
time. So I'd only really be able to either listen to what they're saying or write down on the board. I was always just trying to catch up, basically.
Yeah. And then you're writing down what they're writing, and then they're speaking about something else. Then you're like, God.
And it's a lot.
How old were you when you had that test?
So that was in year 11. So I was almost
end of school.
Almost the end of school. And when I was finishing primary school, my head teacher told my mum, I think Phoebe's dyslexic. I think you should get her tested.
Yeah.
And she didn't do that. So I'm not like angry at her for that. It is what it is. But it just shows you.
Next section about your
It shows
mum.
you like how these things can just get missed all the time, like overlooked. So one person did flag it up with my mum. My mum, she was a single parent. She was busy trying to provide for the two of us. So she obviously forgot. And then I just went along thinking that I was a bit of a dum-dum. Well,
you got into private school, which is...
Yeah, well, I had tutoring to do an 11 plus.
Oh, okay.
So, again, if I hadn't have had that specific tutoring, there was no way that I would have got in.
People have that thing as well. When, I don't know if you would have got it maybe at 15, 16, but when people find out like later on that they're kind of ADHD or dyslexic, they instead of like... They kind of get more angry about it. It kind of does more harm than good, because it's like, God, they just have all this like frustration that they think things would have been so much different if this would have got flagged a lot earlier and they would have had the support that they could have done.
Yeah.
Did you feel like that at all? Or?
Yeah, I did feel like that. I mean, luckily, because of this great teacher, Miss Boone, she... the evidence that she'd got was enough to apply to the exam board for extra time for me, even though I hadn't got an official diagnosis. And I had this little piece of paper that she gave me with her signature on that got me extra time in my GCSEs, and when I went to college at a different school, that got me 25% extra time in my A-levels. And I took this little piece of paper off to uni and took it to the... whatever department it is that you have to go and speak to these things about, and said, I've got this piece of paper, like, I've heard you can get funding for like free laptop if you're dyslexic, but I haven't got an official diagnosis. What do you think? And they were like, yeah, actually that piece of paper can get you the test for free. We'll pay for your test because that's enough evidence to say you probably are, which means that your official diagnosis will be like worth it. I don't know. And I got a free laptop.
There you go.
So, it all worked out in the end. But it was just by that point, I was 20. And
this, hang on, is this where you went to A level, went to college, because you A levels, you went to uni, you went to an arts uni, didn't you?
Yeah, I went to Leeds Art.
So this is obviously now you're at a university which is more like creative thinkers. You're surrounded by creative thinkers. What were you studying?
I was studying visual communication.
Visual communication. Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, I'm still not completely sure.
Oh, okay.
We'll try your best to. Basically, it's like a multidisciplinary art subject.
Yeah.
Art and design. I had all sorts of people I was working with on my course, so or what people have gone on to do. So there's illustrators on my course, graphic designers, video, but it's like everything. If you can visually communicate something, then do it. Like follow the brief and visually communicate a message. It sort of ties in a little bit. People would compare it, I think, a bit to advertising and marketing, because maybe you're working on campaigns and finding a way to deliver something in like the best way that's going to be received by the audience. So, yeah.
Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy it, but I mean, we were at uni at the same time, and 6 months into first year was COVID.
Especially tough for creative subjects.
Yeah. I was never sure about going to uni, so I didn't actually go until I was 20, and that's because I did think it was a waste of money and a waste of time. And this is because of going through the educational system, not being very well supported and encouraged and nurtured in the areas that I excelled at, and sort of being told that the areas I was interested weren't worth pursuing because they wouldn't make me any money in the future, or I wouldn't be able to find a good career in it. And it's like, let me find that out for myself. Yeah. I think that's always been my attitude. And that's always kind of been my mum's attitude. So to an extent, when I say...
Do things the hard way.
She's a pretty relaxed parent, and she has let me find things out for myself. So I think maybe when it comes to school as well, I was always sort of feeling that a little bit annoyance with the teachers when they were trying to like push you in one direction more than another, because that's not what I was... that's not the way I was... That's not how it was at home with my mum. I didn't have a pushy parent at all.
My mum always says to me, like, whenever she gives me advice or something, I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. And she's like, she always says, like, oh, you'll never do things the easy way. She's like, I always have to find things out the hard way.
Yeah.
And like you said, like, find it out for yourself.
Yeah.
And then so at uni, you were studying that. You said you enjoyed it. Obviously, it was COVID time, which I guess it's kind of... It was a very difficult time for most subjects, let alone being a creative subject, which is like being there, being in person, having the materials and resources around you. Whilst you were there, because it's not like you're doing filmmaking, which is just films or doing screenwriting.
I did specialise into filmmaking in my second year.
Okay.
We had to specialise for a term, and I decided to choose filmmaking for that.
How come you decided to choose film?
I've always been interested in moving image. Yeah. I like visuals and I like music. Yeah. Music's always been a big part of my life. I can't play any instruments, but I used to sing when I was younger. Yeah. And I still love a good sing in the shower.
Nice.
So I think I've always had so many ideas. I'm an ideas person. I don't necessarily execute them, and that maybe is like a ADHD trait. But I also think that like every human being sort of has that trait. So
I know what you mean about that, because I've always been a creative person, but I've never had that kind of one thing that's been like, I'm an amazing drawer, or I'm an amazing actor, or I'm an amazing dancer, or an amazing musician. But I've always been good at having creative ideas and being like, oh, we should do that. And what I'm really good at is when my mate comes to me with kind of a creative concept, and I'm really, right, this is what you should do with it, and like building on it. But I'm never that good at, like, I couldn't just, be one of those people, who can sit down and could just draw a flower. Yeah. And it's like, wow, that's phenomenal.
I completely relate to that, and it's something I do really miss about uni is those crits that you'd sit round, you'd go away for a week and you come back together in small groups and talk about what you've been working on that week, and people will give you advice about either artists to research or documentary to watch or something like that that's related to it. And, it was great getting feedback from people, but what I really loved was telling other people what to do. And like, I remember my tutor turned around at one point and was like, I don't really need to be here. Like, Phoebe's just here. No. I was like, that's such a big compliment.
I know what you mean. It feels like I'm better at helping other people with their stuff than being like, what do I actually want to do? And they give me an idea of like, bang, that's what you should do for that. And like, yeah, genius.
It's easier because you're outside of like their box where they're like stuck in, and you can have a different, clearer perspective on things. And also, it's their idea, so they're the ones that are afraid to make a decision because they're afraid of failure. Like most of us are all afraid to actually do the ideas that we think about, because what if it goes wrong? And that all ties into imposter syndrome that everyone feels, which I do think I'm feeling less and less now. I'm getting like slightly older. I'm hoping by the time I'm 30 it'll be completely gone. Like no shame. But
bring you back in 3 years.
Let's see.
Be like, nah, it's got worse.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I had a few mates who did filmmaking, a few mates who did different kind of art degrees, and it's something that I find really interesting is kind of post uni life for an art student. What does that mean? Where do you look? Where do you go? I think, you know, for example of this, I've got a mate of mine who did film studies at uni. You know, he's bang on all that stuff. He loves doing it. That's his calling. That's, you know, his that's the thing he wants to do. And he said trying to find a job in that field is really hard for a number of reasons. One, you've got to have loads of experience. When he's just been at uni for 3 years, he's just come out. But two, there's also this the money aspect. People in that field aren't paid as much, and he's not from a big city, so there's no film jobs there. So for him to move to a big city, he's got to be on, you know, this amount of salary, which how things are so expensive now. It's just not affordable. So one thing I wanted to kind of talk to you about and you to expand on is, what is life like post uni for an art student? You know, the highs, the lows. How's it been for you?
Well, there's definitely a lot of lows and a lot of rejection, to be honest. But it all depends on your individual circumstance. I mean, there's loads of people I knew who were like bang on it in second year uni, applying for internships and doing competitions and things like that. And those people that were all engaging in that early on in uni, they all had stuff sorted in like London and stuff for graduation. You know, they moved there within about 6 months and they haven't come back up north. For me, I was not on it, but I was also, you know, life gets in the way, and money, like you say, money is a major aspect. So obviously, I mentioned I went to a private school. I've been very fortunate to have like a, you know, really good education for secondary, but I was on a bursary. I wasn't like most of the other kids at the school who had tennis courts and stuff in the backyard. You know, if I was at state school, I would have been like a pupil premium kid. So when I went to uni, after having that experience of like being at school alongside these very, very privileged people with a lot of money to back it up, and they've had that their whole life, I realised that, you know, just because you've been to private school for 5 years doesn't mean that you've got this sort of like little like invincibility suit on. And it became really like starkly obvious when I started meeting some of those privately educated kids at uni who had all the money to back it up and the parents supporting them, especially when we left as well, because they were the ones that tended to find those opportunities within film industry or here,
you know,
because they've got godparents and things like this. And I don't want to like come out like I've got a chip on my shoulder about it, because that's something I know I need to get over. I know, but
I would
it's
if I'd
something
like just done so much work in a certain subject just to, you know, lose out on like a placement or an internship to, you know, someone's nephew. You know, you'd be gutted. But it also, it's a lot.
Yeah, but then I also know there's people who are even like less fortunate than me, who in even worse financial positions than like I was. So that's where I'm trying to like be a bit more mature about it and get a balance. But I applied for
Did you have a plan? Like, so you finished uni.
I really wanted to get into radio. I wanted to become a radio producer. So my final piece at uni was an interview with a guy called Martin, who ran a printing press in the town I grew up in, which opened in 1870.
Yeah,
1780 though. Yeah, really old. And
how old was Martin?
Martin is in his 70s now. He worked there since he was 15. Anyway, that's a different thing, and that's my podcast. So if you want to listen to that, it's on SoundCloud under Phoebe Lothian. I just looked at the camera there. Edit that bit out. It's fine.
Practice
So and I was really excited. I'd listened to radio my whole life and like been way more into that. Actually, you know, I said I did a bit of specialising into film, but after specialising in my second year into film, I was like, actually, the audio and soundscapes is something I'm a bit more interested in, thinking about my interest in music and sound. So I looked at radio opportunities, looked at getting some work experience. I managed to get a connection to someone at like Global, and you know, thought I had a week work experience set up there, only for like 2 days before say, oh, actually, sorry, no, we can't have you here anymore, or like, you know, we can't do that week. And then, okay, when can you do? And no reply. So there was that. applying to the BBC for their apprenticeship schemes and all that stuff, like the obvious stuff and the smaller stuff, and I just sort of lost my motivation. And also, I had
Applying
to
for
go to
jobs
work.
is a job.
I had to go and I had to get a job, an actual job that was going to pay my rent, and so I just ended up working hospitality on minimum wage for like 5 years. And it's only the last year that I've transitioned now into working in education. And I'm really glad that I have done that. I mean, it's great hours, as in you finish at 3:30. So can't complain. But I mean,
different from hospitality.
As a support staff, I don't get paid much more than minimum wage per hour.
Yeah.
But it's still, to me, I feel like I'm progressing in the right direction.
Which is the right thing and the right feeling. I mean, with hospitality, I don't want to talk about hospitality too much, but I've worked, I think, most people worked it in the past, and hospitality can actually be a really enjoyable job. Yeah. And it can actually, like, you can get such, like, I've made some really good pals from hospitality, had some really good times with people, and still friends with people now who I just, like, worked with in a bar for, a couple of months here and there.
I currently live with my old manager from my last bar job, so, you do meet friends for life there. People will be able to give you a home and everything.
Yeah. But I don't want to talk about that. We're going back to when you're applying for jobs and the kind of rejection with the radio stuff. What was kind of, because I know I said it before, but applying for jobs is like a job, especially when you work full time and you're doing all these, and then to go home and be like, I've got to do all that. It's a lot. I
became sort of defeated by the whole thing, and that went on a back burner. So it's still something I'd like to do. Like I say, I think now this place that I'm at with, having found a role within education that I really enjoy, which I found funny to myself because of how ready I was to get out of school and never look back and never want to walk through like school doors again unless I maybe have my own kids one day. And now it's probably like one of the best jobs, and like cliche to say, but it is really rewarding. It's really challenging too, because you're working with young people, especially secondary school. They're teenagers.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Don't talk to me about year 9s. They're the worst. But
you work in Liverpool as well, don't you? Scousers.
It's technically not Liverpool because it's
Merseyside.
But it's the posh bit of Liverpool.
Yeah.
But yeah. Go on, ask me another question. I've forgotten what I'm going to say.
So we were talking about kind of that, when you're starting to apply for jobs post-uni and that kind of rejection. And, because especially with, the creative field, it's such a tough industry to get into. What was that kind of rejection like for you personally?
I suppose, it's when you receive an email that tells you you're unsuccessful with your application, fine. But when I've responded to them before and I've said, okay, fine, can you give me any pointers for the next time that I apply for something like this? And they just give you like a generic response. Yeah. And that's what I think is actually tougher to take, because it's like, okay, fine, I know that I'm not, it's not just going to magically happen. Hear about people who applied for like 200 jobs in a month and they don't get
I've seen those videos. They've been on like BBC News.
Yeah.
This this student applied for it,
and these are all people like not even in the creative industry.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it now is that employers, when they see that you've been at uni for 3 years and got a degree but have no work experience before university or during, like that's where a lot of people are running into problems, because they're not going to employ someone that doesn't have a realistic understanding of what the workplace is like.
Yeah.
So it's all this sort of like, I feel like sort of cycle and trap.
Yeah.
No matter what you do,
you kind of got the same outcome. And how did this affect your your creativity? Like,
I have like
was that tough to do, to then, still try and do your creative kind of side projects at the same time?
Yeah. Not having specifically time dedicated to it, like you get the opportunity to have in uni, which is what I think is a plus of it and makes it beneficial. Not having that time and working 12-hour shifts. Yeah, I've lost a lot of my creative output. Take photographs from time to time. I'm like doing a little bit of drawing.
Yeah.
I'm mostly now I'm surrounding myself with these creative people that I've met living in Hume and trying to find ways to help them as much as possible, because I know that I can be a handy person around. Like earlier today, driving around
ideas.
to warehouse, picking up spray paint for murals and things like that. And it's just nice to stay in touch with that environment. And I think now I'm coming to a place of acceptance. I'm not saying that I might never make some kind of career out of art in my whole life, but the pressure to like sort it all out and find your niche in your 20s, I'm getting over that now. I'm sort of accepting that as long as I can be around creative people and, you know, do a job that has a creative element like I have currently, then I think I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah, content.
Yeah, and that's all we're searching for, a bit of contentment.
Contentment is one of the main things to strive for. One thing I did actually want to talk to you about, which I've seen you've been doing, which I think is really cool, is your business. Should I call it a business? I don't really know what to call it.
Well, it's not registered. It would be a CIC if I got round to registering it. Right. So
I'm going to call it a business or your a project we call. That might sound a bit more fun. Called Cabs.
Collaborate at First Sight.
Yeah. Could you just tell me in a sentence or in a minute what is the kind of idea?
Originally, it was speed networking for creatives specifically. When I say creatives, I meant I wanted creatives of all backgrounds and like points in their life. So I started it in Leeds before I left. It was born out of having a lack of a network due to COVID. So even though I was at art uni and I did know people from around my uni, I didn't feel like I'd had an opportunity to collaborate because we weren't allowed to even be near each other for the majority of time. So I think that's why I actually managed to pull this off and follow through with my idea, because I was scared because I was thinking, graduating soon, and I know that it's going to be really tough out there to get any sort of creative job, and I know I'm going to be working in hospitality for a while, so got to keep this creative environment going. Like I said before, like having time in crits was one of the like favorite times for me, and being able to like facilitate other people's like research ideas and things like that. So I used my skills as a yapper to bring people together, to try and make people feel comfortable. And it was really good. The events were very small. I ran them all for free. I did 4 events in the first year, and they were all for free at the Old Red bus station, which is now closed down. Rest in peace, Old Red.
Bus.
And I built a really lovely little community of like probably around 20 to 25 people in the first year. A couple of them came to like a couple of the events. Some people only came once. But to celebrate doing that for a year, we had an exhibition, and anyone who had come to the networking event could submit an application of something they wanted to exhibit. So we all collaborated on putting the exhibition up, and we had that at Hedgerow House, and that was a really awesome feeling, like walking in the room and there was like at least 100 people there. And I was like, sick. I've actually pulled it off. And my objective was also to make it really accessible for people, because I'd sort of seen both sides, having had a bit of private education, but then also being brought up by a single mum who was really struggling for money. Like I understood what barriers people did face, but I also understood what opportunities were out there for people that had the right support and financial backing. So that's one of the reasons I made it free to start with.
What's the kind of plan with it now? Are you still...
So it took a hiatus when I first moved to Manchester in 2023. Then I moved to Liverpool, and I did manage to launch it again in December in Liverpool at a venue called The Quarry, with the support of Phoebe and that was great. This is venues. The only reason I've been able to do these things like accessibly as well is because the venues have been kind enough to give me a venue for free. So I did 2 events, one in December, one in February, I think it was, or March, just before I moved back here. And I would like to keep those going, but I think the direction I want to take it in is more to do with actually what the name is, which is Collaborate at First Sight, and move it away from this sit-down speed networking thing, which has worked well, but I just think need a bit of evolution. So I think I'm looking now to turn that more into actually bringing creatives together in a room and running more of a collaborative workshop where people make a piece of artwork actually together and they are actually collaborating at first sight.
Yeah.
Because having that space will then open up the conversations naturally and they will network with each other and it will work that way. And I think that will be a lot more true to what the initial idea actually was.
I would get the best businesses or whatever you want to call it, not a business, are always kind of, you know, they're flexible in where they go and they're always changing, and those are the best businesses where it's kind of, they grow, but they grow into different things. It's not like it's just one thing or what it originally started as. You know, you might think, oh, that really works. And you might meet someone who, you know, like your actual event, you might meet someone at the event thinking, oh, we should do something like this. And you're like, that's a great idea. Do you know what I mean? Let's do something like that for the next one. I think what would be cool if you got people down, I don't know how you do it, but get people down from creative businesses to turn it into kind of like a job fair just for like creative people.
Yeah.
You know, I've been to a few which are just kind of job fairs, but not just for creative, just kind of everything. And they're always a bit, I don't know, a bit stale, yeah. A bit like, I don't really.
That's why I wanted to do
That's why it could be a bit of a fun job fair.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to do the networking the way that I had done it in this sort of more relaxed environment rather than networking events that, you know, you just walk into a room. It's a networking event. Everyone in the room is supposed to be there for a networking event. You're supposed to walk around and like introduce yourself to people. Yeah. No, this was structured. So that sort of took away a little bit of like fear of the small talk element. Yeah. They were limited on their time to talk to each other. And I think that structure really like helped people. And that's something that like only I could facilitate in my own way, you know, and that's something at least I could make it unique.
Yeah, of course. Have you got anyone up and coming or TBC?
TBC. Or is it TBA?
Whichever one you want.
What does TBC? To be confirmed.
To be confirmed.
Yeah.
TBA.
I only found out what ICL means the other day.
What does that mean?
I can't lie.
I can't lie. ICL. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, no. I think it's a great idea and a great concept, and I think a lot of my friends who are in the creative field who I know that's their thing, that's what they love to do. It'd be great just to kind of bring people together to be like, what do you like doing? Put people together. My last question for you is a question I ask everyone. Every time I do an episode, I say I'm going to come up with the right wording, and I still don't. But the question is, you know, what would be your kind of message for other people, or your kind of something you want to live your life by? Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm still thinking of a good way to word it, and I'm still not. So
I'll try and formulate a good piece of advice in my head, but I'll just go with not coming up with the right words as well, I think.
I think that's the way to do it.
I think this is, you know, a message that I've heard from other people, and don't be afraid to fail. But that's easier said than done. One of my favourite things that I've ever been told in an educational setting when I was actually there was when I did my foundation year in art and design, and that was the best year I've ever had in education. And I recommend anyone do an art and design foundation when they finish their A-levels. You can do it for free for a year, so do it, because it's just, even if you're not going to go into the creative industry, it's an amazing year. And they said to us, like, you can't do anything wrong, basically. There's no wrong answers. Like, whatever you want to explore, it's you do that. There's no wrong answer, because if you don't make mistakes and if you aren't willing to fail, you probably won't evolve very much. Yeah. Everything that I've ever got wrong, I've learnt from a lot more than things I've got right in life. And watching, you know, other people make mistakes as well. Yeah. So, you know, you can learn from everything around you. And also don't rely on education to be the thing that actually educates you. As much as, you know, I am working in a school, and I take my hat off to all the teachers who do an amazing job. Like, take control of your own education is what I would say. If you don't feel like you're being supported in your school or nurtured, or your interests are being nurtured, then take your education into your own hands and educate yourself, because you can. You've got the internet, you've got libraries out there.
You know what I mean?
They're all closing down, but there are libraries. Don't forget how to read, kids.
Yeah. You heard it here. Don't forget how to
So
read.
I'll leave it on that, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No. Well, thank you for coming on today. It's been really good to speak to you. It's been really good to hear more in the creative mindset, what I was like during school, what I was like during post school, and what you're doing now. So yeah, I mean, another thing I took from that is, you know, don't be scared to be creative. Don't be scared to try things. If you don't try, you will never know. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Thank you for coming on today. It's been great.
Thanks, Eden.
Take care.